Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, which I'm excited to say we're now airing 5 days a week. Once a week, you can still hear an interview with a different consciousness changemaker that is out there working tirelessly to help catalyze change and expand awareness on Spaceship Earth. But now, in addition to the weekly interview, on the other 4 weekdays, you can tune in to myself and my co-host Dalien taking questions from the audience, covering a bit of positive news, giving interpretations of a favorite quote to ponder, and you can hear us ranting about whatever other positive ponderings come to mind on that day. And as you guys might imagine, producing this podcast is definitely a labor of love for me and Dalien. But make no mistake, it takes a lot of hard work to put it together for you guys, especially now that we're doing it 5 days a week. So if you enjoy the fruits of our labor, please go over, give us a good rating and a review on iTunes. Subscribe for free while you're at it, of course, if you haven't done that already. iTunes truly is the holy grail when it comes to podcasting, and good ratings and reviews are what help our iTunes ranking so that we can gain more exposure in the massive sea of other podcasts that are out there. Even if you have terrible ADD and don't want to take the time to write out a review, trust me, I get it. I'm a bit of a spaz too, but please take at least, the 9.2 seconds it takes to give the show an honest star rating, which only takes one little click. I assure you it will be very much appreciated by us, and that the good karma gods will rain blessings down upon thee for doing so. All right, all you positive heads, welcome to another daily podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Beecham. I've got my co-host, Dalien, here with me. Dalien, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me again, Brandon. It's so wonderful to be here.
I didn't really have you. You just kind of show up and won't leave until I record you. So,
like I said, thanks for having me, Brandon. I may be your uninvited guest, but hey,
yeah,
you keep letting me back in somehow.
We all have those uninvited guests in our life that just don't seem to go away, and you finally have to integrate them into your world,
Good job. Sort of integrating me.
Just kidding, Dalien. You're welcome to be in my world, and I'm grateful to be in yours.
Oh, I know.
Wink. Well, I hope all you guys out there are doing amazing today. We are going to spend a few minutes of our day bringing a little bit of positivity into our own worlds and your world. So thank you for tuning in and giving us the opportunity to do what we do here and to have an avenue to vent our own positive, whatever it is, rampages.
Yeah.
That's actually something we're going to talk a little bit about.
Talk about some mind-bending stuff a little bit, huh?
Yeah, talk a little bit about all the stuff that we geek out on all the time, all the exciting things that are happening in science and technology and understanding spirituality, trying to wrap our brains around what the heck we're all doing here on this rock hurtling through the cosmos at hundreds of thousands of miles per hour.
There are just so many mysteries, right? So many thoughts and feelings and experience. It's all just incredible.
It's incredible. But, life. For every mystery that seems to be answered, there's like 10 that come behind it. So I really like the concept when you talk about the concept of being in eternity now, and you are one with what created all things. You are divine being. And so let's call it God, for lack of a better word, source, consciousness. It is infinitely large as it is infinitely small. And I love that idea because you actually see it mirrored in the physical reality, in the physical realm with, we see no end to it, right? It is just it's so vast. Even when you compare like our sun to other stars that we know of, it's like a dot in size. I mean, it just keeps going and going and going. And same thing as we dig deeper. At first, we figured out what cells were, and this is the smallest thing. And then we figured out what atoms were. No, this is definitely the smallest thing. And then we figured out, the actual particles that make it up. The quirks, and it just keeps going and going and going. And so it's mirrored physically that it is infinitely in both directions. It just keeps going and going. And I think that's a reflection of what's going on with this physical journey. We'll make, for every great achievement, new plateau that we reach in our own development and understanding and expansion of consciousness, and we've made it, and we realize so much more. It's like a whole vast vista of, possibility opens up before you, and you have that much further to go. So what a great idea and concept that, the path is the goal. The journey is the goal. You never actually arrive. You're in the eternal moment of now, and every time you make a milestone, so to speak, well, that's awesome, and that's a whole new experience. But compared to where you're going on this never-ending journey of, self exploration and knowing thyself, you are as far away from your end goal as you ever are, because there is no end goal. It is infinite. It goes in all directions at all times. So that's quite a mind-bending kind of concept to wrap your brain around.
What you just said made me think of when you were talking about how it's infinitely large and infinitely small. Made me think of the dreamlike nature of reality, how it's so, it seems so real when you're in it, when you're in the middle of it, and there's all these intense experiences rocking you back and forth. There's all these thoughts and feelings that you have, and then it all sort of fades away, you could say, of course, at the end of life, that ultimate sort of transition to death and the great beyond, of course. Another one of these great mysteries, right?
Right.
But life is so dreamlike just when we're here, like at every step of the way. You're like, one thing that I love hearing about is like a little scientific factoid. Your brain, when it's seeing something, visualizing something, or imagining something, dreaming, it looks the same to your brain, right? Like the same, areas of your cortex fire, and it's seeing something, right? Like it can't really distinguish whether it's real or not, right? So I love that sort of, on the one hand, seemingly so solid and real nature of things, and when you look at the other end, you could say it's also like it all just sort of all the pieces that make it all up just sort of disperse, and it all goes back to the source.
Right. And you can relax. And we talked on yesterday's podcast about hurrying, and it's something that I definitely do a lot of. And it's when I think about it in these terms, it's like, Brandon, what are you hurrying so much for? You're never going to get there. There is no end goal. The journey is the goal. So relax into your eternal nowness and just be with where you are, with the level of comprehension that you have, with the knowledge. Yes, you can continue to grow, but you don't need to have like an uncomfortable relationship with that growth. Like, I got to get somewhere. Just relax. You're never going to get anywhere that you're done. You're never going to be done with this. And when you realize that you're never going to be done with this, when I have the moments of remembering that, and that's something that I certainly have personal issues with, because I'm so, accomplishment driven and things like that. When I talk about it even now, it's like, oh yeah, I'm never going to really get there. The path is the goal. The journey is the goal. Relax into where you're at. And I think that is, it's very reassuring and calming, and it helps a lot to navigate this life in a way that makes the most sense.
Well, Brandon, when it's not too early and we've had a little bit of coffee, we could maybe just keep riffing like this for a while.
Yeah,
but
exactly. But we have things to get to, is what Dalien's saying. So as far as some of the things that we want to cover today, you have a positive story of the day.
And now, for your positive story of the day.
Bring it on, Dalien. Bring it on.
Well, we're going to talk today a little bit about 3D printing, because 3D printing is something that is becoming a bigger part of our lives every day. But we see a sort of path from where we are to where we might be in a few years with regard to what 3D printing can do in our society and how it can just radically transform our lifestyle.
Yeah, it's like super exciting development.
Yeah. We're talking about 3D printing of buildings and habitable structures. Something that's been done in China already, from what we've learned. We've got a common friend here, one of Brandon's great friends, who he's mentioned already a couple times on the show. And he's supplied us with a few facts, because this guy's very interested, of course, in this whole
he follows
subject.
The 3D printing stuff very, very closely.
Yeah. And I've heard him speak about it at length before, and the picture that he paints is just incredible. But one of the things that we're going to talk about today is how, for example, buildings have been built already in China. Buildings have been 3D printed, right? An entire building. And something like a year ago, 12 to 13 houses were 3D printed.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at possibly in about 23 years being able to build an entire city.
Yeah.
3D print an entire city.
Well, that's and when he was talking to us about this and we were doing a little bit of research, it's fascinating because you've got, about a year ago, they did 12 to 13 houses in a day that are actually livable, going to, sold, and, people are going to utilize these spaces. And I think those were pretty small, simple structures, but just here very recently, they did a 3-story house, and that took 3 days. It's a more complex structure, but still, can you imagine a 3-story house from start to finish in 3 days? It's incredible. And, then you start thinking of, based off of the math that my friend who Dalien mentioned has done, about 23 years from now, they should be able to do skyscrapers. And I'm not sure what the whole, how he arrived at that number, but he's pretty thorough with statistics and you look at the exponential growth of technology and things like that. So let's say 20 years from now, we're printing a 3D building, 3D skyscraper in a day. And then of course you lay the tracks for multiple machines. I mean, you could literally, if you had enough machines, you're talking about 3D printing, a city like Shanghai in a day. Okay. And at 6 a.m. it wasn't there. At midnight, you've got a whole city that is sprung up. I mean, this is really fascinating because it's just, once again, it's where science is mirroring this concept of manifestation and instant manifestation. And as we evolve and progress, spiritually, as we are coming close, some people put it that this dimension is actually merging with the next. And on the next dimension, like your dream dimension or the astral plane, as some will call it, or where you go when you die, the difference between there and here is that when you think something, it instantly manifests. Whereas here, we've got the lag in the 3D world, which is why you have all the problems that you do. People don't realize what they're seeing today is a reflection of what they've been vibrationally offering in the past. And so, but as we're merging dimensions, we're speeding up the vibration, as we're entering new regions of space that are changing our cellular structure and DNA and causing, all these changes within us, we're becoming more like these next dimensions over, what happens? Instant manifestation, right? So I love it when you kind of look at science and you can imagine like, okay, humans want to create a city. Voila, there it is. It just appeared almost overnight. It's a crazy thing. I mean, they're also printing kidneys. I think as of a year or so ago, a couple years ago, they could print a kidney in 6 hours. Mm-hmm. I mean, can you imagine 6 hours to print a human kidney? Now, I think they're still a few years away from actual human trials using them.
Something like 3 to 4 years.
Yeah. But it's, once again, instant. I need a new kidney. Magic it into being, Yeah. And it's just an incredible technology that is something that we're just starting to use. And I think we're, a few years away from remembering my friend talk about this, where, I remember he had his wedding ring is 3D printed. And he's like, it cost 5 times or something like that what it would to make it the traditional way, right? But few years later, it's only, 3 times the cost. And it's like, when we get to that point where it's cheaper or the same to 3D print things as traditional manufacturing, the whole world's going to change instantly.
And as radical as it may sound, to 3D print an entire city in something like, 24 to 72 hours. When you're talking about
20
3D printing organs, when you're talking about 3D printing, something as crucial to, your life as a kidney or a liver, a heart, of course. And they're talking about possibly making them not just a replacement organ, but better.
Right.
So they're going to be engineered to be more efficient. The materials will be somehow, more durable, all of this. So you're talking about like a radical definition of the way we live here in maybe a couple decades.
Oh, it's just, it's the exponential growth of technology is, it looks crazy when you compare now to, when we grew up in the 80s and stuff, like compare right now till 20 years from now, the gap is so dramatically different because of the exponential growth of technology. And so things are just, the world is changing and changing quickly. So I love following along with that on the show because it's also exciting. So, so thanks for sharing that story, Dalien. That's a really interesting topic, and it's one we'll continue to watch.
Yeah, we figured we'd talk about something that's perhaps, doesn't have quite the psychedelic or metaphysical bent that, we like to share with you guys all the time. But this is just something that we've talked about before, Brendan and I, with our common friend here, and it's just fascinating.
Yeah, we like to, I personally like to do a blend of, if I'm going to be coming with a lot of these sort of esoteric concepts, which we talk about a lot, blending it with what's happening in science, because I really do believe that science and spirituality, when you look at the two, they're merging in an incredible way right now.
Absolutely.
And for those that have a more scientific slant, it's when your mind works that way, it's really helpful to start looking at some of the evidence that backs up some of these more, less tangible concepts that we talk about so much. So, All right. Well, now that leads us into the positive pondering breakdown of the day. And I have Ponzi here with me yet again to shine some of his brilliant wisdom upon us all. Hello, Ponzi.
Hello.
Ponzi is a writer for Positive Head and does usually once a week or so, a positive pondering quote of his choice and then a breakdown. And so I've asked him, this is the second time actually, I've asked him to come on to the show and give us a breakdown. So I appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Yeah, of course.
So without further ado, give us your breakdown. Give us your quote and breakdown.
Okay, the quote is by Mr. Albert Einstein. And he says,
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he's kind of known. I think he worked at the local pub.
Yes, exactly. Local bartender, everyone's favorite.
And our bartender friend says, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. And I'm a bit of a poet, so I decided to write a little stanza, if you will, to describe this emotion to me.
Oh, cool.
Born a noble bird built to fly, I love to soar majestic skies. But they caught me in their nets, pulled me down without regret, screamed I must swim to survive. So from natural high I dived, but couldn't breathe and slowly died. And here's my one sentence interpretation. We are often comparing ourselves to others or trying to fit into an existential and lifestyle framework that really isn't authentically us. And because of that, we aren't living a life conducive to who we really are, and thus tend to do more poorly by other standards, and really don't realize how uniquely brilliant we truly are. So imagine an athlete father whose firstborn son is a chip off the old block, first strings in all sports, and the two have a natural bond. The younger son is more artistic. He prefers to draws beautifully, but doesn't show much interest in sports. He soon realizes his father doesn't understand his passions and shows him less attention and affection than his elder brother. So the younger son, in order to gain his father's approval, decides to take up sports instead. He does succeed in gaining more of his father's attention, but even though he tries hard, he's never truly talented like his brother and grows up always feeling the lesser. He carries this feeling with him in different forms into his adult life, developing a self-esteem complex, trying hard to please or measure up to others at things he may not really care about deep down, and a sense of perpetual inadequacy lingers all around him. Sound familiar to us? I'm sure we can all directly or indirectly relate to the above scenario in many ways, not just with sports, but in other aspects of life. Someone close to us, perhaps family or a group of close friends, imposes their own feelings and beliefs onto you, causing you to bend your desires in order to feel validated, although internally something feels misaligned. I think Einstein's quote is such an important one because so many of us are judged and judge ourselves as though we are all fishes in a pond, or monkeys in a tree, or birds in the sky. But we're not. Nature loves biodiversity, and the most thriving and healthy environments are those that have the most diversity. Each species has developed its own unique traits to survive and thrive in its environment. The human species, despite being perhaps the most complex on planet Earth, surviving within nearly every type of known environment, where every one of our billions of brothers and sisters has some unique talents and interests, still imposes the law of homogeneity and sameness. These laws aren't usually overtly spoken, but insidiously permeate the very fabrics of our cultural mindset and values. We move our children through a few predetermined paths, hammering and molding their original uniqueness into something that if they can cram into the mainstream pipes. We protest inside, knowing it hurts to be thus treated, manipulated, but we are understandably fearful of vocalizing our dissent and fearful of the other lesser-known landscapes beyond those pipes. And thus we move against the healthy flow of our own nature. Every child should memorize this quote as they grow up as a mantra of appreciating their own unique genius. And every adult should use it as an affirmation each time they feel inadequate, doing something that deep down they know wasn't meant for them in the first place. So, my fellow geniuses, be free to climb, swim, run, fly, and jump as you feel called to do.
Spectacular. I love that. I love that quote. I've seen it many times before, and it's such a good one. I went to a conference not too long ago, And one of the things that was discussed by the gentleman that was teaching us was talking all about learning and how broken our system is, especially the education system, because we all learn in different ways. Some are visual learners, some are, learn by writing things down. And so if you fall into the mold of a traditional thinker, I mean, even Einstein, it's so great that he said this because he did awful in school, right? Because he didn't think in accordance with the way the system in which he was, a part of, thought he should think. So he was, considered dumb. And I love the fact that people are starting to really understand this, I feel like, even though our system is slow to, I once again always go to the education system because it's how we start all of us start our lives. And when we're putting them in this system that is so narrow, I love the fact that my son goes to an art school just because of the fact that it is outside the box of the normal confines of education. There's still that element, but at least it's stretching the boundaries to some degree. And I think we'll look back in 20, 30 years and, appalled at what we would do to our children and then, drug them because they're broken and they're not, everyone's a genius, in some way, shape or form, I believe. And I think that's what he's really getting at here. So wonderful, wonderful quote. Thank you so much for coming on and taking time out of your day to share this with us, Ponzi, and of course, writing it out and sharing your brilliance. If you guys are interested in more Ponziness, you can check him out. What is your Instagram?
At My Wander Life.
Okay. And then your site is ponzidream.co, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So yeah, there's some really great stuff there. Some amazing poetry and video and all kinds of very cool stuff. So I recommend you guys checking it out. Thanks again for joining us, Ponzi.
Thank you so much.
Okay, cool. So yeah, other than that, what I would like to do is I'd actually, in continuation of what we talked about yesterday, I would like to talk about Abraham-Hicks a little more. I used yesterday a quote, "What you do is minuscule in comparison with what you choose to think, because your vibration is so much more powerful and so much more important." That was the quote yesterday. And so after recording the podcast yesterday, I was thinking about it and I was like, Abraham-Hicks is so great. She's such an incredible channel is what she actually does. It's a woman named Esther Hicks, and she channels a non-physical entity that goes by Abraham. I could care less. Some people are like, I believe that, I don't believe that. I don't really care at the end of the day. What I care is the information that's coming through. The message is so powerful. And one of the things that she talks about is a rampage of appreciation. And she has a book called Ask and It Is Given. I think that is the first place that she referenced this rampage of appreciation, going on these rampages of appreciation for all the things in your life.
New York Times bestseller.
Yes. So I thought, what better way to kind of continue that never-ending topic in this podcast by sharing a few minutes of someone that I greatly admire, Esther Hicks, and so we're going to do that now for a few minutes and share with you a rampage of appreciation.
So what do you want to talk about?
My body. From way back when, since I can remember, I was fat. I was thin. I was medium.
Now, in light of what we were just saying, right before you said that, in other words, not an hour ago or not 20 minutes ago, just now, we were leading into this by helping you to realize is that you didn't start the attraction of this morning. It's been in motion for a while, and you didn't start the attraction of whatever's going on with your body this morning. It's been going on for a while, but right now you can begin a different trend. But you don't begin a different trend by talking about anything the way you used to talk about it. That doesn't change anything. What you're living is always an indicator of what you're offering vibrationally. Want to offer something different vibrationally.
Well, I have proof of that. That I'm just sort of leading up to what has gone in the past but is now the present.
But you can't change the future by talking about the past. That doesn't work. It slows you down. It puts your feet in the mud. In other words, talking about all of that is not only wasted words, but counterproductive words. It's not fun to be the first one because we're really pouncing on you in a strong way.
But that's good because it gets me to...
We really want to make this point that you've got to tell the story the way you want it to be. And what is it about that what you translate that as if, okay, I'm going to tell the story the way I want it to be, but first I have to go back to the beginning of time and lead up to where I am. And we say, when you go back to the beginning of time, or when you go back to the beginning of the story, you turn the whole story in that direction. And how long do we have to wait until we get up to where you are? And where you are never changes as long as you're telling that story. So never again tell the story that you don't want to be replicated in your life. It's like saying, law of attraction, I want you to put yourself on hold. I have 45, I have 55, I have 175, I have 587, I have 1,042. Oh, law of attraction, turn off. I have 5 million things that I want to tell you about. And law of attraction is happening so fast, you just got to kind of go cold turkey. You can't taper off. You can't really taper off. You got to make a decision. Use all of your willpower to tell the new story. The new story. The new story, not the accurate story, not the story of what is, not the story that others who are using their eyes would agree with, the story of vibration, the story of creation. Tell us the story of creation.
Well, I think my body is metamorphosized. I am feeling, especially when I do in the bodily condition CD that I have, the visualization, I'm flying. I'm totally in the groove, on a wave, in the current, and I am in my body. That is exactly how I want it to be.
Now, before you go further, we just want to ask our vibrational monitors, room full of them here. You're hearing the words, yes? Yes. You're feeling the tone, yes? Do the words sound upstream or downstream? Does the tone feel upstream or downstream? She feels upstream to you? Continue. We're almost out of time, so go fast.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm having a great time while I'm in this body. I love this body. And then I come out of that and I'm looking in the mirror, looking to see the way I look with this particular outfit on
now
or with no clothes on.
Stop it.
Okay.
Stop it. You have, what is itis?
I have what? Where do you say it?
You've got tell it like it is itis. In other words, you have honestitis. You have upstreamitis. You have objectivitis. You have. I've been telling this story for so long. I don't have the words to give you, Abraham, that you want to hear from me because I haven't been practicing them. I've been weighing the pros and the cons, the pluses and the minuses of my life experience for so long that I can't tell the story only in the downstream way. And we submit that you can, you just haven't practiced it. And it's unfortunate that you're practicing it in front of all of these people with us pinning you to the wall like this, but they're like that too. And we want to make this very strong point early in this gathering that you got to tell the story only the way you want it to be. And we haven't made that point with you, or you would be trying harder to tell the story only the way you want it to be. You're not alone in this. Almost everybody in this room is so absorbed in the reality of their current life that it permeates. It's oozing out of them constantly. And that's what you got to clean up. You've got to stop observing and talking about and regurgitating the aspects of your life that you want to change, because they can't change as long as you're doing that. They can't change.
Well, sometimes I say I'm just not going to think about it at all. But every time I look at the mirror, I'm
You're doing
reminded.
it now. You're doing it now. You're doing it now. You are finding a point in time that amplifies what we were just explaining that you don't want to do, and you're doing it again. And we're doing it as we're amplifying it too. In other words, so here's the story that you want to tell. I'm in a physical body. I've lived lots of things, and by living those things, I've now determined what it is that I most want. And I know that as I look in the mirror, I observe what is. I get more of that, and it's logical that I would look in the mirror and observe, and so I get that. But it is now my decision that I'm going to speak only of that which I want. I might think it, and I might observe it, and I might notice it, but from this point forward, I'm only going to speak about what I want. So, or what is a vibrational match to what I want. So these things I know. I know law of attraction abounds. I know law of attraction is responsive to the things that I think and say. I know that I have the ability to know the difference between talking about what I want and talking about what I don't want. I know that my guidance system is active within me. I know that I can do this. I know that I might slip back from it on occasion, but I am going to make a stronger effort. I can do this. I can tell the story the way I want it to be on every subject that is important to me. And relative to the subject of my body, this is the story that I'm telling. I have a healthy body. I have a body that is responding to all of the things that I am providing for it nutritionally. I have a body that knows how to utilize the substances that I ingest to its greatest benefit. I have a body that's a cellular body, yes, but it is mostly a vibrational body, and because of its vibrational frequency, it responds primarily to the thoughts that I think, to the vibrations that I've activated. And I have the good fortune of having guidance within me that comes forth in the form of emotion, so I can tell when I'm talking about what I want, and I can tell when I'm talking about what I don't want. And from this point forward, I'm only going to talk about what I want. And if I can't find a positive way of stating it, whatever it is, I'm not going to open my mouth and talk at all. I'm not going to talk about the things that I don't want anymore.
What about the thinking? Forget the talking. What about just the thinking?
Well, in time, you'll be able to, as you are deliberate about what you say, it will become increasingly easy for you to be deliberate about what you think. Be deliberate about what you say. Esther was listening to them at dinner last night. And they have been flying so high. So many wonderful things are happening. But there's something about a dinner conversation that almost always activates within both of them old stories that don't measure up to their now standards of how they want to feel. But they're practiced stories, so they're easy to tell. And the more you tell them, the more it activates, and then the more of them that you think about. And Esther was thinking, I'm not going to talk about the things that I don't want to replicate in my experience. And we know, you see, here's the thing. We know that this is not a standard that any of you can keep. We know that you can't just all of a sudden stop talking about things that you've been talking about. It's not logical. And law of attraction won't let it be that way. We just want to make a powerful, powerful, powerful point right here in the beginning that must be your effort, at least your effort. I'm going to tell a new story. We want you to leave this gathering with those words ringing in your ears. I'm telling a different story. I'm going to tell a new story. I'm going to tell the story of my life as I want it to be, because my life keeps turning out to be the way I tell the story. That's the thing that we want you to understand. You think you're telling the story in a historical sense. We're wanting you to understand you're telling the story in a creative sense. Your future is happening because of the story you're telling now. You say, oh no, you misunderstand. I'm telling you about what was. And we say, no, you're telling us about what will be. Because what you're telling is coming, you see. You've got to talk about your prosperity. You've got to talk about your vitality. You've got to talk about your intelligence. You've got to talk about the perfection of your beingness. You've got to look for the positive aspects of your life and beat the drum of the positive aspects. And you've got to leave the negative aspects out of your conversation, out of your vibration, out of your thoughts, out of your vibration, out of your point of attraction, and then you'll get an indicator that matches that new vibration. See how it works?
I do, but the physical, the thinking of it is very, very different. So I'm really tuned in, tapped on, turned on with my body in the way I want it. I want to have it and feel it. But the physical part is different than the emotional. So the physical part and my emotional part.
But here's the thing that we want you to understand.
I have not.
What you just said can't be true, because if you were consistently doing what you're telling us that you're doing, the indicator would match your desire. That's the thing that we want you to understand. The indicator, what I'm living, always matches the consistent vibration that I'm offering. You'll hear so much more as we are moving forward.
Wow, yeah. So that gives you an example, guys. You can certainly hear more. She has a lot of stuff on YouTube. Obviously, her rampages of appreciation are super inspiring and give you an idea of how to focus your energy, where to focus your energy. Stop telling the stories from the past, focusing on what got you here. I don't care about your past. You shouldn't care about your past in a good way. I mean, not to say you want to forget it and wipe it completely, but when you're focusing on the things that are bad from your past, I love how she puts it, that you're actually, you're not telling the story of what happened, you're creating a new story. And when you can understand that, when you talk about the bad things from your past, you're not telling the story about what's happened. You're actually creating your next story because you're drumming up the vibration of what you experienced. That's such a key thing to wrap your brain around, how important. And so many people are caught up doing that. So, yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit of that with you. And other than that, we're getting pretty close down on our time here. So let's see here. One of the things that I wanted to leave with you guys. Oh, be sure and send us a question. We want to hear from you. We really want to interact with you guys. Today, we have a lot we've covered here, so I'm not going to answer any questions. But if you could, if you have something that you'd like to pick our brains about, we would love to interact with you. Also, of course, leaving us a review on iTunes is greatly appreciated. Share us on social media with your friends. Help us spread the positivity. So appreciated. Otherwise, thank you all for tuning your beautiful brainwaves in yet again. So as you journey on, remember, as long as you ain't dead, you're already positive ahead. Journey well, everyone.